You know, sometimes you hear about people being really, really careful with money. Like, incredibly so.
Uh-huh. Tight-fisted?
Exactly. Like, maybe someone's so stingy they wouldn't even share a single drop of oil if you asked them.
Well, that specific image, that's actually central to the story we're looking at today.
Right. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a story that takes that idea, that extreme frugality, way further. It's the ancient Indian story of Kosiyaseṭṭhi.
Mm-hmm. And it comes from a Buddhist text detailing this man, Kosiyaseṭṭhi, who was fabulously wealthy, but just staggeringly miserly. It's quite a portrait.
So our mission today for you listening is to really get into the depths of this guy's miserliness, uncover the pretty surprising twists that happen, and see what wisdom we can pull from this old story.
Yeah, it's got some unexpected turns, definitely. So where do we start? His wealth.
Let's start there. Just how rich are we talking?
Okay, so the texts say he had a fortune of 80 kodis. Now, trying to translate that exactly is tricky, but a kodi was a very large unit. Think hundreds of millions in, like today's terms maybe. It was a staggering amount of wealth.
Huge, absolutely huge, and yet the sharing part.
Non-existent.
Hmm.
The texts are really specific. Like you said, he wouldn't part with even the tiniest bit of oil, not even what might cling to the tip of a blade of grass.
That image is so powerful, isn't it? It just paints such a picture of reluctance, no more than reluctant.
Oh, absolutely. It's an intense aversion to giving anything. And it wasn't just about others. He didn't even seem to enjoy his own wealth.
Right. I remember reading that bit. There's that comparison to a pond.
Exactly. Like a beautiful full pond, but is guarded by spirits, totally unused. The potential is there, but it benefits absolutely no one, not even him.
It's such a sad image, really. All that potential just locked away. So the story is set in Rajagaha, which is modern Rajgir, right? And a village nearby called Saqqara.
That's the setting. And it's in this context, this life of immense wealth and intense stinginess, that something shifts. A craving develops.
Ah, yes, the cakes. Tell us about that. It seems so mundane almost compared to his wealth.
It really is. So Kosiyaseṭṭhi is out and about, and he sees a poor man eating these specific kinds of cakes. The text names them kumasapuva and gapayapuva.
Oh, yeah.
Probably simple things, rice flour, maybe sesame, fairly ordinary stuff. But seeing this triggers this incredibly intense craving in Kosiyaseṭṭhi.
A man who denies himself everything suddenly wants this simple food. But knowing him, his first thought isn't, I'll just go buy one.
Not at all. His mind immediately goes into panic mode.
Yeah.
The text describes this real internal battle. He desperately wants the cake, right? But he's instantly terrified that if he even admits he wants one, everyone else will want one too. His neighbors, his family, maybe even strangers.
And that means?
That means using up his precious resources, the sesame, the rice, the ghee, the sugar. He visualizes it all dwindling away.
Wow. So the craving itself becomes this source of torment because of his fear of losing wealth. It's not just about the cake anymore.
Exactly. And this unfulfilled desire, this internal conflict, it actually starts to affect him physically.
Really? How so?
The texts say he became pale, visibly unwell. His veins started standing out. He was literally making himself sick with this suppressed wanting.
Imagine that. So rich, but so miserable over wanting a simple cake that he's physically suffering.
He ends up just retreating to his bed, still unable to say what's wrong, all because of this fear of diminishing his hoard. His wealth completely controls him.
But his wife notices something's wrong.
Yes, thankfully. She sees him suffering, and naturally she's concerned. She starts asking him questions, trying to figure it out.
Like what sort of things?
The text lists them. Is he sick? Did he anger the king? Have the kids or the servants done something wrong? The usual suspects.
And he just denies everything.
Denies it all. No, it's not that.
Yeah.
No, not that either. It really shows how isolated he is, even within his own family.
Until finally,
she keeps pressing, gently but persistently, and he just breaks down and confesses. He tells her about this overwhelming craving for that cake, the kapalapuva.
you'd think that would be a relief, finally getting it out. But no.
Not with Kosiyaseṭṭhi. The miserliness just kicks right back in, maybe even harder.
Right.
His wife offers to bake the cakes, right? A perfectly normal suggestion. He freaks out.
Yeah.
She suggests baking enough for the neighbors. No, too many people. Enough for the street. Definitely not. Just for the household staff. No way. Even just for their own children. Absolutely not.
It's almost comical, isn't it, the level of paranoia?
It really is. It shows how warped his thinking has become. Any sharing, even within the family, is unthinkable.
So what's the solution? How does he finally agree to get his cake?
The final absurd agreement is this. His wife will bake one single cake, just for him, and they'll do it secretly on the very top floor of their 7-story mansion.
Like a secret mission for a cake.
Totally. And he insists on locking all the doors below, putting bolts on, extreme security measures for one cake.
Unbelievable. He's building a fortress against generosity, but as he's planning the solitary feast, things are about to change, right?
Big time. Because, unseen by Kosiyaseṭṭhi, the Buddha becomes aware of the situation. And the Buddha, with his, deep compassion and insight, sees that even this incredibly stoogy man has the potential for enlightenment buried deep down.
So the Buddha decides to intervene.
Yes, but not directly, initially. He asks one of his chief disciples, Moggallāna, who was famous for his psychic powers, his Edi powers, to go and handle it.
Moggallāna. Okay. What were his instructions?
Pretty specific, actually. Go subdue the miser, help free him from this clinging attachment, and then bring Kosiyaseṭṭhi, his wife, the cakes, and the ingredients back to the Jetavana monastery, using his powers, of course.
Wow. Bring the whole operation back. Why?
Because the Buddha planned to share the cakes. He intended to have a meal with 500 monks using these very cakes made by the miser.
Okay, that sets things up dramatically. From hoarding one cake to feeding 500 monks.
Exactly. It's a setup for a major lesson in generosity. So, Moggallāna uses his powers and arrives at the mansion.
How does he appear?
Quite dramatically. He just materializes right outside the window of the top floor room where Kosiyaseṭṭhi is hiding. The text describes it like a jewel suddenly appearing in the sky.
Must have scared Kosiyaseṭṭhi half to death.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
His reaction is instant fear, but also weirdly hostility. He actually insults Moggallāna.
What does he say?
Something like, what good does it do you standing up there in the sky, trying to belittle him maybe? Dismiss the power he's seeing.
But Moggallāna isn't put off.
Not at all. He then puts on a display. He walks back and forth in the air, sits cross-legged in the air, stands right there at the window. And then he starts emitting smoke.
Smoke?
Yeah, smoke that fills the entire 7-story mansion, top to bottom.
Whoa. Okay, that's serious.
Definitely gets Kosiyaseṭṭhi's attention.
Mm-hmm.
The text says the miser feels intense discomfort, like his eyes are being pierced with needles by this smoke.
So the physical discomfort starts to outweigh the miserliness.
It seems so. He gets scared his house is going to catch fire.
Yeah.
That finally prompts him to act, but still grudgingly. He tells his wife, okay, just give him a small cake. Just a little one to make him go away.
A small one, of course. But things don't go as planned, do they?
Not even close. This is where the miracles start. His wife goes to the pan to bake a tiny little cake, and it expands. Miraculously, it fills the entire baking pan.
It just grows.
Just grows. They're bewildered. Kosiyaseṭṭhi, probably thinking his wife messed up, tries himself. He takes an even smaller bit of dough. Same thing. Poof. It becomes enormous, fills the whole pan.
This is incredible. It's like the universe is fighting his stinginess.
It really seems that way. The text says every cake they tried to bake, no matter how small they started, just got bigger and bigger.
He must be going crazy at this point. All these giant cakes he can't hoard.
Totally frustrated. He finally yells at his wife, fine, just give him one. Pick one and give it to him.
But can't you?
Nope. Another bizarre twist. She reaches into the basket to grab one cake, and they're all stuck together, fused into one solid mass.
Seriously? Like glued?
Completely inseparable. They try everything, even using sticks to pry them apart, but nothing works. It's one giant lump of cake.
Oh man, the effort, the frustration.
Exactly. And the text mentions he's sweating, he's thirsty. An original craving is probably still nagging at him, but now it's mixed with total exhaustion and bafflement.
He's reached his limit.
He has. Completely defeated. He just throws his hands up and tells his wife, okay, give the monk all of it, the whole mass. I don't even want it anymore.
Wow. Surrender. That's a huge moment for him.
A massive turning point, driven by sheer frustration and maybe, just maybe, a tiny crack opening in his miserly shell.
So the wife takes this mega cake to Moggallāna.
She does. And now the monk's approach shifts. The power display is over. Now it's time for the teaching.
The Dharma talk.
Right. Moggallāna starts explaining the Buddha's teachings to both Kosiyaseṭṭhi and his wife. He specifically talks about the benefits, the merits, the positive results of generosity.
Trying to connect the dots for them, show them a different way.
Precisely. And it starts to work. The teaching resonates, especially after everything they've just witnessed. Kosiyaseṭṭhi has a real change of heart.
How so?
He actually invites Moggallāna to come eat at his mansion, a total 180 from bolting the doors.
Incredible. And what does Moggallāna say?
He explains the bigger picture. Actually, he says, The Buddha himself is waiting at Jetavana Monastery with 500 monks ready to share these cakes.
Oh, right, the original plan.
Yeah, and then comes another miracle to get them there.
How do they travel?
Instantly. The text says the top of their staircase just
Yeah.
appears right at the entrance gate of the Jetavana Monastery, like a magical portal.
Wow, the scale of these events is something else.
It really emphasizes the extraordinary nature of the intervention. So they arrive at Jetavana.
And what's the first thing they do?
They offer water to the Buddha and all the monks. A traditional gesture of respect, but for Kosiyaseṭṭhi, it's his first real act of willing offering, you could say.
A significant step. Then the cakes.
Then his wife takes the enormous, still inseparable mass of cakes and places it in the Buddha's own alms bowl.
And now the big test. Feeding 500 monks from it.
Exactly. And the miracle continues. The monks, and apparently other people who are there too, all eat from the cakes. But the supply doesn't go down. It just keeps providing.
And never runs out.
Never runs out. Completely inexhaustible. It's the ultimate demonstration of abundance flowing from generosity, directly countering Kosiyaseṭṭhi's lifelong fear of scarcity.
He and his wife must have been stunned.
Utterly. They go to the Buddha and say, "Sir, the cakes, they're not diminishing."
What does the Buddha say?
He tells them to take whatever remains and leave it near the monastery gate. And the text adds this amazing detail. It says, that pile of leftover cakes remained visible for a long, long time. Like, people could still point it out years later when the story is being recorded.
A physical reminder of the whole event. Incredible. But the story isn't just about magic cakes, is it? There's a deeper transformation.
Absolutely. The miracle set the stage, but the real change happens when they listen to the Buddha teach.
What happens to them?
After hearing the Buddha's discourse, which would have built on the themes of generosity, non-attachment, and the nature of suffering, both Kosiyaseṭṭhi and his wife attain Sotāpatti.
Which is?
It's the first stage of enlightenment in Buddhism, sometimes called stream entry. It signifies a fundamental shift in understanding, a breaking of the first fetters binding them to delusion and suffering, a major spiritual milestone.
So they're fundamentally changed people when they return home.
Completely changed. And the proof is in what Kosiyaseṭṭhi does next. He goes back to his mansion and he gives away his entire fortune, all 80 kodis. He donates it to the Buddhist order.
Wow. From refusing a drop of oil to giving away everything. That is quite the turnaround.
It's about as dramatic a conversion as you can imagine. It really shows the power of the Dharma, the teaching when conditions are right.
And the monks, they must have talked about this.
Oh yeah. They were buzzing about Moggallāna's incredible powers and how skillfully he managed to convert this notorious miser.
And the Buddha overhears them.
He does. And he praises Moggallāna, but uses this really beautiful analogy.
What's that?
He compares Moggallāna's approach to a bee collecting nectar from a flower.
A bee? How so?
The bee takes the nectar it needs, right? But it does so gently, without damaging the flower's color or its fragrance. It benefits, but causes no harm.
Ah, I see. So Moggallāna guided Kosiyaseṭṭhi effectively, without harming him or crushing his spirit, even while challenging his core beliefs.
Exactly. Skillful means. The Buddha even speaks a verse about it, emphasizing how a wise person engages with the world, taking what's useful without causing damage.
And the impact of this whole event, and the Buddha's teaching on it.
The text says many other people who were listening also attained various stages of enlightenment right then and there. It was clearly a very powerful teaching moment.
And there's one more layer to it, isn't there? Something about past lives.
That's right. The Buddha didn't just leave it there. He then told the Jātaka a story of one of his own past lives, to give even more context.
Okay.
In this Jātaka, called the Illisa Jātaka, it turns out that Moggallāna, in a previous life, had also helped Kosiyaseṭṭhi, who was someone else back then, obviously, overcome similar issues.
So there was a long karmic connection between them. This wasn't the first time Moggallāna had helped him out.
Exactly. It adds this dimension of long-term karmic relationships and how positive actions can echo across lifetimes.
Wow. What a story. So pulling back from the details, this deep dive into Kosiyaseṭṭhi, it really hammers home some key things, doesn't it?
It really does. You see the destructive nature of extreme attachment, extreme miserliness, but you also see the incredible power of generosity and how wisdom and compassion can literally transform someone.
And the story itself is just wild. The multiplying cakes, that instant journey, the complete turnaround of the miser. It's full of these surprising, almost fantastical elements.
Which makes the core message even more striking, perhaps. Easy thing, doesn't it? About our own relationship with, well, with stuff.
Yeah.
possessions,
Yeah.
with sharing.
Yeah. It leaves you wondering, that the question it raises. When we cling so tightly to things, are we actually losing something much more valuable? Like happiness, connection, peace of mind.
Hmm. Could clinging be the cause of losing what we think we're protecting? This is definitely something to chew on long after you hear this story.